I was in love with heroin, but the fentanyl like took over, and it really it took over my life completely. Like that was, I turned into a monster after that. You know, like really bad. Yeah. My name is Katee and I'm from Valley Center, California. My upbringing was, I lived with my parents in Valley Center up until I graduated high school. I lived with my mom and my dad and my older sister, my younger sister, and my younger brother. So I was the middle daughter. My parents were married until my father passed away. When my father passed away, that's when I started my addiction. So it led up to a series of events that started that, but that was what started the initial downfall of my life. So I had been experimenting with drugs earlier. I started with weed. So weed was about 12, 13 years old. Then I graduated to alcohol. That was a little bit later in life, maybe 16 to like 21. 21, I used meth for the first time. That led me to heroin, which I started at 26. And then heroin went to fentanyl, which I started that at 29. I was using drugs to numb the pain, but I was also self-medicating. A mental illness runs in my family, so depression. My dad was extremely bipolar. So I always felt like this, void, or like I was different. The drugs kind of helped me, gain a friendships with people that I thought were genuine, but they really were just, there for what I could offer, So, but yes, I was self-medicating a lot of the time.
What was the relationship with your brother and sister like at that point? Were they also in a similar boat?
No, other than my father, who he was an addict also. So my whole childhood, my father sold weed, and he went to prison actually when I went to high school. So he went to prison for 3 years, and I'm a lot like him. So after he passed away and I started using, my sister or my brother, they're not addicts. So, our relationship obviously got really, parted, drained. Yes, exactly. My older sister ended up taking my daughter, which she still has her now. But, I wasn't in the right state of mind, and I don't regret anything that I did. But, as far as that, because I knew she was in good care. But at that time, I just wasn't able to take care of her. It wasn't right. So my sister has a son that's 10 months older than my daughter, and her and him are like brother and sister now. So when I was in high school, I was preparing to go to college. I wanted to be an art curator, so I wanted to work in an art gallery. I actually went to some school for it, but I dropped out of college. I dropped out of a junior college. And then I was inspired to do hair, which I did. I went to beauty school. I finished beauty school. And I wanted to be a hairdresser. I someday wanted to, do costume makeup for like movies and stuff, special effects and all that. So that's what I wanted to do. I was a functioning drug addict when I was using meth. I held a full-time job. I was able to take care of my daughter. I was able to do things, maybe not fully, but I was able to get by until I met a man, and I was doing his laundry one day and actually found needles, rigs with heroin in them, and I freaked out. I was like, what the hell is this, And I had a bad day one day, and he offered me some. I never used a needle with heroin, but I've smoked it. That was my way of using it, and so that's how I was introduced to heroin. Was I met a guy, and I fell in love with the heroin, not him. So from the first time using heroin to, you know, where it led me off the edge, I left the guy. He ended up being physically abusive to me. And so I left him. Luckily, I got out of there before, you know, something terrible happened, but, you know, I had to leave. I was with him for about 2 years, and I thought it was going to stop there. I thought, you know, when I'm not with him, I'll just be able to get off the heroin and I'll be able to, you know, move forward, you know, but it continued. I ended up living on the streets for a while after I lived with him, living in my car, couch hopping for a while. You know, at this point, I had no relationship with my family at all. My daughter, my sister wouldn't let me see her. You know, they knew I was strung out. And that's the only thing that mattered, unfortunately. You know, I ended up moving to Big Bear with a friend, and I stayed in a cabin with him, and we were just friends, you know, but I was still using heroin. I was still, you know, getting high on meth, but him and I ended up getting in an argument. Okay, so he's like, you need to get out, you know, well, you can't be homeless in Big Bear, you know. So I ended up meeting another guy and staying with him in this horrible place. And, you know, so I was like at rock bottom at that point. I was like, I can't do this anymore, you know. I had like 2 bars on my cell phone that barely worked, and I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I cannot do this anymore. I need your help, you know. So that was the first time I tried to get help. I met up with her and my aunt, and they got me a hotel until I could get into the program. I went to Interfaith in Escondido, which is a decent program, but it's hard because a lot of the homeless population lives there, you know. So it's not just a program, it's also a homeless shelter, which the homeless shelter doesn't get drug tested, so there's a lot of drugs coming in and out. I used to score drugs there, you know. So it's like putting a rehab in the middle of a you know, homeless encampment. You know, it's you know, it's not the best place to be. You know, so that was difficult.
Seems pretty counterproductive.
Right. You know, you're smoking a cigarette, and you know, people are coming by offering you needles for a cigarette. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's, you know. So I was there. I graduated. You know, when I'm in recovery.
Did you use drugs while you were there?
No, I did not.
So you were able to fight?
I was able to fight. I was able to fight all that. You know, I was able to get through the program. I did really well. Ended up going to sober living. You know, I got introduced to this therapist that was, you know, very eccentric, very Team Katee, wanted good things for me, you know, but she kind of fed a little bit into my head about my daughter, because I really wanted a relationship with my daughter at this point. My sister still lived in California at this point, and I wanted a relationship with her. I wanted to, you know, have her back in my life. And I thought because I was 6 months clean that I deserved that, you know. My therapist was like, well, you know, California's a mom state, you know, I can go with you to court, you know, we can fight this. I ended up going to court and losing to my sister. You know, my whole family stood in front of the judge and told the judge that I was an unfit parent, which I was, but I didn't understand at the time. I wasn't in acceptance of that at the time. So I went home that night, and I was doing really well. I worked. I was, you know, I had a car, you know, almost a brand new car. You know, I was, you know, living in a beautiful sober living. You know, I had great friends. I was going to meetings, but I wasn't emotionally prepared for that. So that broke me, and I went out 2 days later, and I stayed out for 4 years. Yeah. I think that what had happened was that I wasn't in control of my emotions. So I wasn't prepared. I didn't have a backup plan. I wasn't prepared for, you know, I had it in my head that the judge was going to say, yes, Katee, you get visitation with your daughter again. You know, instead she gave me 2 visitations a year, my sister moving to Kansas, you know. That broke me. I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't in acceptance. So, you know, for everything that I've done, I wasn't taking responsibility for everything that I had done. I was just like, well, you know, aren't we going to live in the now? You know, like, isn't this what matters is happening now? So, you know, being in control of my emotions, being aware of my behaviors, you know, because with addiction, it's not just you're using, it's behaviors too that, you know, you need to correct, you need to fix, you know. I was, not fully honest about everything still. I wasn't, like I said, in acceptance with everything. I was in denial a lot of the time. I just wasn't ready, to hear no. And I think that's, having control of your emotions is a huge thing for when something traumatic hits you in your life, because it's going to happen. Life is life, but I just wasn't ready for that. Well, after being sober for a while, my mental state was, when I got high, I immediately thought of all the consequences that I was going to have to deal with now. So I think the first time is the only time you feel like that. The rest of the time you're just chasing it to get well. Yes, those feelings did fuel my need for more drugs. I thought, well, I've already done it, so like the shame, especially. Now that I've used, I'm not going to be able to go back to my sober living. My mom, my family's not going to allow me back in their life. They're going to be very disappointed because I worked so hard and I got to where I was, and I thought I was doing really, really well. And so did they, that I just knew it was going to be devastating. I didn't want to face them. So it was kind of like I was being a coward in a way, I didn't want to face them. I was disappointed in myself, I decided that was going to be that was going to be my life. My family would be better off without me. My daughter would be better off without me. So I decided I wanted to, go big or go home. I just didn't care anymore. I was like, well, I've already done it, and I tried. I did it one time and I tried, but it didn't work out. So, now this is my life. I'm in this hole and there's no getting out of it, I would go to stores and, not just, small stores or like, easy stores. I would go into Best Buy and I would, steal laptops and phones. I would do white collar crimes like, check fraud or, credit card fraud, or, that was one of my charges that I have, is identity theft and, credit card fraud. One of the first times I was arrested for identity theft because I was going into people's cars, stealing their wallets, and charging their credit cards and their debit cards. My offenses were normally misdemeanors, drug offenses like possession, never sales, never anything that would go above a misdemeanor. So, that was normally, I was in and out, but I was, it was never for long periods of time. So when I got the felony, when I got OR'd, I was still in that state of mind of, I just want to get high, I don't care, I went back out and I was doing the same exact thing, nothing changed. I didn't learn a lesson from being in jail. I was just like, well, this is part of it, this is part of what happens, and, now it's back time to, to do what I do best, and that's, doing crime and, trying to, keep myself above water, and trying to keep myself well and trying to, please other people, because I do that too, and because I want to be accepted, but I just wanted to be accepted by wrong people, by people that didn't really care, about me or about my well-being. So for so long, I wanted to stop using, especially when I got to fentanyl, because when I graduated from heroin to fentanyl, there was no more heroin on the street anymore. So I couldn't find it anywhere, I was going down to Mexico, Nothing was good, it was all bad. Everything was turning into fentanyl. So I fought it for as long as I could until it just wasn't there anymore. And finally I caved in, I decided to use the fentanyl, and it's a different high. It's not the same. It's like 100 times stronger than heroin, which is that's not good to me, because it's like, if I'm just gonna nod out and I can't feel it, then what's the point, But yeah, that really consumed me. I mean, the fentanyl really consumed me. I was in love with heroin, but the fentanyl took over, and it really it took over my life completely. I turned into a monster after that, really bad. Yeah. heroin addicts are like really die hard for heroin, you know what I mean? It's really hard to imagine myself, you know, going from something that, you know, makes me feel good and you know, is not, how do I say, like, just like night and day, you know what I mean? It's like the heroin just, or the fentanyl is, you know, it's used, my mom was telling me, she's like, you know, because I was talking to my mom about how I, you know, my addiction and everything, and she was like, you know, when your dad was dying, you know, they were giving him fentanyl patches to, you know, to alleviate his pain when he was in hospice, you know what I mean? So that's a very powerful drug, you know? And yeah, it is like playing Russian roulette with your life, you know, like you never know when you take a hit, you know, if you're gonna die, you know, or not. It's yeah. A lot of people were dying from, you know, snorting the fentanyl, you know, which I was doing. You know, I was using a lot of fentanyl. I mean, I got to a point where at the end of my addiction, it was like, I mean, enough couldn't be enough, you know, there was not enough. And I had a very high tolerance. And yeah, it's just, I was doing anything I could for it, you know. It was like, you know, what do you need? And I'll get it for you, you know. So I have a boyfriend, and you know, I met him when the first time I was in recovery. Okay, so after I went into recovery and I relapsed, him and I ended up getting together. We went back out together. He's a meth user, I'm a heroin user. We were on the streets for a while. He got stabbed and almost died. And so when he got stabbed and almost died, he decided that he was going to get clean and he was going to stop using. I was going to do that with him, but instead I didn't. You know, he got clean, I didn't. So he, you know, has more time under his belt than I do. So he was constantly, you know, trying to keep me away from the fentanyl. You know, he hates opiates, always has, always hated when I was on heroin, you know. But, you know, he was my biggest support system, you know, so, you know, I was very manipulative to him. I did a lot of horrible things to him when he, you know, he was trying to get clean and I was fighting it, you know. Between heroin and fentanyl, the kick between the two is horrible. Like the fentanyl, I can do heroin, you know, I can do the heroin kick. It was not that bad. The fentanyl kick was really bad. Like I was very, very sick. I was, you know, vomiting. I was, you know, it was really bad, and it lasted a long time. So I was on probation, and I got caught with fentanyl and with meth, and a large amount of it. So the police searched me. They found it. They called my probation officer. He said immediately take her to jail. So my boyfriend was very happy because, you know, for myself, unfortunately, I had to be forced to get clean. I did some jail time. My probation officer decided that a program was the thing that I needed. So, you know, at first I was unhappy. I was not happy about it, you know. So this time I got 240 days with half. So that's 4 months. So after the 4 months, I was released to a program. I got assessed by a drug assessor, and they decided that a program would be best for me. I went to the program, and the program changed my life. You know, I learned so much from this program. It wasn't just about, you know, drug abuse. It was about how to be a human being again, you know, because I was so accustomed to not cooking, not cleaning, not, you know, keeping my hygiene, you know. It was just like they taught me everything that I, you know, really needed to know. When I graduated that program, I felt like I was really set up for success. You know, I was prepared with things on how to, like, you know, when you have a bad day, what do you do? You know, when you're faced with a certain situation that doesn't go your way, what do you do? You know, it's just kind of like everything that I faced in my first stint of recovery that I failed at, I learned in this one. You know, learning these things, it was, I mean, it may sound small, but it was, you know, it was huge to me, you know. So when I graduated the program, I felt like I was set up for success. I ended up coming back up here so I was in San Diego, I ended up coming back up here to North County. I got put into a sober living, which I live in now. I love it. I have lifelong friends there now, you know, people that really care about me. I go to McAllister, one of the case managers there. I was on the phone with her in the program down in San Diego, and I was like, "So are you guys gonna like help me out with a job, or like what's going on?" And she was like, "Well, I know someone that makes socks." And I'm like, "Socks? Like, anything else?" And she's like, "Well, you should just give it a try, And I was like, "Okay." So I emailed Sarah, and immediately I was like, "I don't even know this person," and she's like wonderful. You know what I mean? Like she's just. Even her emailing me, she was just amazing, So I was really excited. She's like, "Can you come in today?" And I was like, "I can't come in today, but I can come in tomorrow morning," And that's where it, went from there. And, walking into a place and automatically feeling like you're accepted or you're, not, looked down upon because of your past. Like I was in my interview with her, and they're talking about Las Colinas and how have I ever been there, and I'm just like, you couldn't talk about that to anybody else, like another company, but I felt very open with what I could say to her, and that's huge. You know what I mean? That's huge, because I don't want to be dishonest in my workplace. I want to be able to be honest, but but be accepted still, so. When I started at FutureStitch, I was shown, compassion and, an open door and, an opportunity to succeed. And once I saw that success, I wanted more success. I wanted to better my life in so many different ways. I thought of different things that I could do, and not just at work, but in every aspect of my life. I felt like, okay, maybe I am a normal part of society again, I can be accepted without, being frowned upon, or because of my past or because of my record or because of what I chose in the past, I'm able to, be accepted in a workplace, which is amazing, because that was a huge fear of mine coming out of incarceration, is not being able to get a gainful employment, not being able to find a job that, at all, that's a huge thing, because you have to have money, you have to have money, and not only money, but you have to have, I have to have, that sense of like I'm doing something with myself, like I have a purpose in the world, so being able to come here and, work with all these people that have similar things in common, and being accepted and, being honest with my employer and them knowing everything about me and still accepting me is huge, it's amazing. So how it feels to reflect back on where I was to where I am now, I feel really proud of myself. I feel like I have come a huge distance. I feel like, what I did in the past is what I did in the past. That's not what defines me today, So, I feel like, I try to take the bad stuff and turn it into good stuff, So, yes, I did bad things, but, that's not who I am today,
That's awesome. Where you are now, you've accomplished so much, you've been through hell. What would you say to your younger self?
I would say to never give up, and just know that everyone makes mistakes, and that's not what makes you who you are. Things will always get better, and people love you out there, and so that's what I would say to my younger self.
What does the future hold? Where do you want to go from here?
The future, I have a lot of goals. So obviously I want to have a relationship with my daughter, in due time. That's something that I really, really want. I have a very different idea of what I want now from what I wanted before. I'm not trying to take her away from her home. She's 8 years old now, she has a family, but to be in her life, definitely. I'd love to grow with this company. This is a wonderful company. This is I didn't really realize what I was walking into when I first started here, but I see it now, and I see Taylor's, his vision, and it's beautiful, and I would love to be a part of that. Getting in a relationship with my siblings is something that I really, really want. you know. That's going to take work too, and I understand, and I accept that. You know, just growing and you know, having a family and, you know, having my own things and, you know, being very self-sufficient. You know, I've always been pretty independent, and, you know, I want to put that in like a good way. You know, I just want to have, you know, the life that I deserve to have now that I'm, you know, clean and I'm sober and I'm, you know, have clarity and I'm, you know, a different person. So.